So around 15 years ago, I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry for my sins. And I used to call in on community doctors selling drugs, as you do. And I remember this one doctor up in Liverpool where I worked. He used to tell me about some of the patients that used to come and see him who presented as being depressed. But when the doctor asked them a few questions about their life, the doctor kind of came to some sort of conclusion that it wasn't actually clinical depression, it was what he termed shit life syndrome. And it got me thinking about depression and whether it's real or not in some instances. I'm not saying depression's not real, because it is. But the majority of people, are they actually depressed, or are they just sad from having a shit life for whatever reason? And when I look back into my early 20s, there was a time when I went through a few shit things in life, and my parents took me to the doctors and I was prescribed antidepressants, and they actually made me feel like shit. And I knew for a fact, that wasn't for me. But at not any time during that event did anybody ask me about my life. Nobody offered up any practical solutions about making myself happier or fitter, or maybe getting a better job rather than working in shitty factories, or chasing women, or the amount of alcohol that I was drinking at the time. It all centered on giving me a pill to try and fix a problem which could have been fixed in more practical ways, like I said. So it just goes to show the quick fix that people are looking for when it comes to sorting out their depression or sadness, or even trying to identify what it is. I know that life has been very difficult for people since like COVID-19, and there's been a few events in my life that have happened since then that have made me question whether I was depressed or not. And I actually came to the conclusion that I wasn't. I was just going through, we were all going through a global event that was affecting us, spiritually, financially. People were losing their jobs. People were sitting at home. People were reevaluating their relationships. And, a lot of people would say that we were being gaslit by people around the world about an event that didn't seem to be true on many fronts, but that's not what this video is about. And life is still very tough in 2025, and life is getting harder for many people. It's difficult to comment on other people's lives because I've never actually had anyone walk up to me and say I'm depressed. But I imagine there are families out there that are struggling to feed their kids. Mortgage rates have gone through the roof. It seems like everywhere you turn there's chaos. People are being stabbed in the streets in the UK constantly. There was a recent one in Birmingham. You only have to see the news and to look at social media to understand that people's mental health is on the decline. There's lots of videos on YouTube about people wanting to check out of society, not check out permanently, but check out of like the 9-to-5 routine, because people are not seeing the point anymore, because they're just basically earning a wage that means they can only survive and not thrive in this world, which I think for humans is not good, because we want to thrive and not just be on survival mode. I mean, how can you live a decent life and have great mental health if you're constantly in survival mode? That's not good. The reason that I'm making this video is, I just want to try and highlight to anybody that watches this, it's important to understand the difference between depression and sadness. Now, obviously, I'm not a clinical psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think people really have to go and get advice from these people. And I'm not bashing these people, but what's wrong with listening to somebody that, or people out there that have maybe gone through depression or sadness and come out the other end of it with some practical solutions? I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. What I do find the problem is when people are just prescribed pills for problems that can probably be sorted out by, reevaluating your life. Going back to that doctor that I mentioned, he was telling me that people generally had shit life syndromes because of their job or the lack of money or the partner they're living with, or maybe they've got unresolved childhood trauma. And yet, of course, I would definitely recommend people go and get professional help for unraveling childhood trauma, because, that's important, and it can definitely affect your mental health and well-being into your adulthood. But there are many things that you can do as a person to try and pull yourself out of a bad place or sadness. And you've probably heard it a million times before. Do like a 360 of your life and just figure out all the different facets of your life and what's happening there. Are you drinking alcohol too much? Does that hold you back in life? Because I know from my own experience, drinking too much alcohol does hold you back in life. And, the next day when you've got a hangover, do you really want to be wasting a full day on the sofa, scrolling on your phone, getting even more depressed? And we've all been there. No doubt I'll probably do it again in the future at some point. I'm not an angel, but, I think when you get older, you realise that's just a waste of time. And you're far better off not drinking, or maybe just having a couple of beers at night, so at least you can get some decent sleep and wake up fresh the next day. And that leads on to the next thing. It's about waking up fresh and ready for the day, because we all know there's no better feeling than waking up on like a Saturday or Sunday morning clear-headed, so at least you can start your day well. You can do anything. You can go for a run, meditate if that's what you're into. I'm big into running, and I've been into running for quite a long time, even though I hated it. I think for me, running was a very good way of clearing out the fog in my head. It was a very good way of me telling myself and my ego that to stop being a bitch when you think you can't run. I think running is probably the best medicine for people, because not only does it shake your whole body up to the core, it loosens all the fat up. You sweat all negative toxins out of your body. You sweat all the negative thoughts out of your head. And then I always find that once I've finished a run in the morning, whether that's a 5K, whether it's a 10K or 10 miles or a half marathon or whatever, I just feel like if I do that early in the day, then the rest of the day is set up then. And any sadness that I might have felt in the morning, then it's just completely gone. So I do think running is one of the best medicines you can take for temporary sadness or even depression, because as we've heard before, depression cannot catch a moving target. And then you've got like your food intake. I don't know what the link between shit food and depression is, but I'm sure somebody's done some studies out there. I mean, how can you not feel positive when you're looking at nice, crisp green vegetables and meat, the food that we're supposed to eat? How can you feel happy when you've got beige, bland coloured food in front of you? I love junk food, and I could be a fat bastard if I really wanted to, but I don't want to, purely because I know it will make me feel like shit. And because I'm 45 now, definitely my metabolism's slowing down, but I don't want to put that shit inside me 24/7. Yeah, once in a blue moon's good. So yeah, the food thing, I'd definitely take a look at your relationships, because the people around you are the ones that they're either going to lift you up, which is what you want, or they're going to bring you down. And you know what? We all say misery loves company. So check your friendships. You don't have to put up with toxic friendships. You don't have to put up with friendships that only revolve around drinking or sniffing drugs. Check your girlfriend or check your boyfriend, because that's definitely a big one. And I imagine that there's a lot of people out there questioning whether their love relationship is pulling them back in life. I don't know about you, but I've had relationships before where people don't support you and you're just not the best version of yourself. So definitely check your relationship. I'm not saying wake up tomorrow and break up with your partner. I think that's a bit of a knee jerk, but you know, maybe take each other on a journey of like self-fulfillment and fitness, and, you know, be positive to each other and not toxic, because I can guarantee you that relationship won't work. Another big one for me is all about your environment. I do think your environment, and that includes your job as well, that can have a massive influence on your mental health, depression, or even just short-term sadness. I've made another video in the past about when I was in my early 20s, and when I moved out of the small village that I grew up in, you know, my whole life opened up for me, because I was no longer compressed by a small mind mentality. And when I got out into big cities, you know, it really helps me understand about life more, and I was meeting more people, and I was seeing more new exciting things. So I think your environment is probably one. If you're feeling sad or depressed, then maybe try, if you can, change your environment, because I know it worked for me, and I know a lot of the other people I've spoke to in the past, it really helped them as well. We all know that people are more lonely now today, more than ever, apparently, from what I've heard. You know, I go through bouts of loneliness. I love my own space, because when I'm on my own, I get shit done. You know, I actually get shit done. And when I'm achieving my goals, whether it's making a new video on YouTube or running my half marathons or just anything, I feel happy, because I feel more accomplished and I don't feel distracted by other people. And I get it. I know it's hard to meet new people now when there's like not alcohol involved, or, you know, just being caught up in pointless conversations about the world, about things that, you know, don't really matter to you. And I do love people, and I love meeting new people, but I've got to a point now, because I'm 45 and I'm trying to like claw some lost years back in my life that I lost. I want to like have more friendships that are, you know, do exciting things like mountain climbing, or anything that makes you feel good, sports, endeavors, you know, doing some traveling together, or making things to make money. And that's another thing as well. I would definitely recommend that anyone that's never traveled on their own, like solo travel, do it. And I've done solo travel on my own for minimum 14, 15 years now, because the people that I've met are either they've got their families now to look after, which is fine, or I've just never really met anyone that's, and because I'm in my mid-40s, like I said, most people that have got families or starting families, or they think they're past it and they don't want to do traveling anymore. So I just think, fuck it, because if I wait forever for people to want to come traveling, then I'll never do it myself. So I've done it I've been in quite a few places around the world on my own. And it's been really good for my mental health, because it shows you how independent you can really be, and, you know, having to only rely on yourself to get around the world, that builds your confidence, and, you know, you meet so many different people, so it makes you get out of your comfort zone. And for me, that's something that really can help you get out of sadness and depression. So, you know what, there's 1,000,001 things you can do to really improve your mental health, and I've just, you know, spoken about a few of the key ones. I know life is difficult right now. I know it's tough. It seems like the world is weird. It is weird. And I know it seems like people are just getting on with their daily lives, but it just seems like since COVID, the world is weird. And even I have to like check myself every day just to make sure my mental health is good. But I always say to myself, as long as I've got things planned in the diary, as long as I'm lifting my body every day and, you know, running as much as I can. I know it's winter now in the UK, but I'm still running a lot. I'm doing a half marathon this weekend on Sunday. And I can just picture myself running over that finishing line, even though my legs will be hurting, because it does hurt to do a half marathon. I just know that I'll be driving home feeling very accomplished, and knowing that my stomach will be flatter as well. And, you know, if you've got a flat stomach, that's another way of like not being sad as well. So yeah, thanks for listening today. I just want to, I'm not here to say, you know, depression is not real. I do think it's very questionable, and I think people out there, you can do a lot for yourself to make sure you don't go down that depression path. And I think probably in the majority of instances, it's not depression, it's probably just sadness, because you've got a shit life. And, you know, even if you've created that shit life for yourself, because we've all been there, we can all create shit lives. you know, there is a way out of it. You just got to know that you can do it and have that confidence to go after things that you want, and, you know, not go down the paths of self-destruction, which we all know what they are in society now. So thanks for listening today, and I'll see you next time.
I'm the terror in the system, the one you fear. When I step in the game,